All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're demystifying AIS. It's essentially this fascinating, completely invisible web that connects the entire global maritime industry. We're looking at a system that touches literally everything, from keeping a single, solitary vessel safe while navigating through dense fog, all the way to massive worldwide pushes for environmental sustainability. As we go through this, you're going to see exactly how a really simple radio signal transformed into one of the most powerful and important data sets on the planet. So think about this for a second. How exactly do you track 400,000 ships simultaneously? I mean, tracking that many active vessels spread all across the globe sounds like an absolute logistical nightmare, right? But what's really interesting is that the answer to this massive puzzle starts with a very simple collision avoidance tool that just sort of organically evolved into something much, much bigger. The foundation of this incredible global tracking feat was originally designed just to help ships figure out who was right in front of them in the dark.
Back in the day, the Automatic Identification System, or AIS for short, was just a localized ship-to-ship tracking setup. It relied on standard VHF radio waves. Ships would just beam their ID, their position, heading, speed, directly over to other nearby vessels or shore stations. But because it relied on that terrestrial VHF, it was super limited. It had a really short line of sight range. We're talking typically just 10 to 20 miles. So, it was fantastic for making sure you didn't bump into the guy next to you, but it absolutely couldn't tell you what a ship was doing halfway across the Atlantic Ocean.
Then, everything changed. Following a 2002 international maritime mandate, basically all commercial vessels over 300 gross tons, so most of your medium to large cargo ships, had to install these transponders. And the technology advanced to catch these little VHF signals from low-orbit satellites up to 400 kilometers in space. That is a huge leap. Suddenly, the system isn't just bouncing signals between local ships, it's beaming data straight into orbit. By merging those ground receivers with satellite feeds, we suddenly had this seamless, totally uninterrupted view of the world's oceans. A real game changer. Okay, we now have this amazing global view, but before we look at the big picture environmental impact of all this data, we actually need to pause and solve a really notorious navigational mystery. If you've ever spent time up on a ship's bridge, you've probably seen this. Why does a ship's radar show a target in one exact place, while the AIS plotting system shows that exact same ship half a ship length away? How can this highly advanced space-age tracking system be so seemingly wrong on a local, tactical level?
Well, it perfectly illustrates illusion versus reality. It really comes down to how these different systems see the world. Your radar is shooting out a microwave pulse, and that pulse bounces off the closest physical structure it hits. Then the radar's computer system calculates the centroid, basically the geometric center of that big radar mass, and tracks it. But AIS doesn't care at all about the physical mass of a steel hull. It just broadcasts a single, highly specific GPS coordinate that marks the exact location of the system's antenna.
Let's picture this out on the water. Imagine you've got a massive 300-meter very large crude carrier coming at you, right head-on. Your radar pulse slams into its bow, and boom, that's the distance it measures. But where is the target vessel's AIS antenna? It's almost always located up on the Monkey Island, which is the highest deck right above the bridge all the way back at the stern. So in this head-on scenario, your radar tells you the distance to their bow, but their AIS is pinging you from their stern. And that right there creates a massive half-ship-length visual gap on your screen. And you can literally prove this geometry yourself. The angle of approach changes everything. Think about it. If you're overtaking that exact same crude carrier from a stern, your radar pulse hits their stern. And guess what? That is exactly where their AIS antenna is located. Suddenly, magic. The radar range and the AIS range match up perfectly. If they're broadside to you, the radar hits the big, flat side of the hull, but the AIS plots the bridge, giving you a lateral offset. It's just pure geometry. Now, to fix this visual gap, international standards stepped in. Crews actually have to manually tell the computer exactly where that antenna is located. To properly draw a 2-scale ship around that one little digital dot, the crew on the transmitting ship has to enter 4 physical dimensions. They measure the distance from the antenna to the bow, to the stern, to the port side, and to the starboard side. The receiving computer then takes those A, B, C, and D parameters and perfectly overlays the physical hull shape over that single GPS coordinate. Problem solved, right? Well, actually, early on, the system was completely plagued by human error. When AIS suddenly became mandatory, installers were rushing to retrofit thousands of ships, and instead of getting out a tape measure, a lot of technicians used what we call lazy math. They just took the ship's total length overall, chopped it in half, and punched that number in for both the bow and the stern values. This bad data entry artificially forced the ship right to the dead center of the receiving screen. It completely distorted the ship's actual footprint and caused massive confusion, a total classic case of garbage in, garbage out.
So why does fixing a local data quirk like that matter on a global scale? Let's zoom out to the macro view. Once the industry finally figured out how to accurately map the precise movements and the exact physical layouts of hundreds of thousands of ships via satellite, well, stakeholders realized they were sitting on an absolute goldmine of big data. This incredibly precise tracking became the baseline for precise efficiency metrics. And that unprecedented transparency, it is now the driving force behind the shipping industry's massive transition to a low-carbon future. We literally went from avoiding local collisions to avoiding global climate disaster.
And the stakes here are incredibly high. The International Maritime Organization has adopted legally binding energy efficiency measures. They've established strict baselines for exactly how much fuel each ship type is allowed to burn. Any ship built in the future absolutely has to beat this baseline. In fact, by 2025, all new ships have to be at least 30% more efficient. 30%! To hit a target that aggressive, operators desperately need the kind of precise tracking and performance data that AIS provides. Every single dot of AIS data helps track the active decisions being made to meet those baselines. The industry is attacking this from all sides. You have regulatory changes like the 2020 sulfur cap and new design indexes pushing the envelope. On the tech front, it's wild. We're seeing ships adopt LNG fuels and even wilder innovations like Flettner rotors. Those are actually a spinning sail technology originally from 1924, and they're bringing it back today to harness wind power. Even seemingly basic decisions, like using specialized hull coatings to fight drag from barnacles, are heavily analyzed using this tracking data to slash fuel burn and CO2 emissions. Let's ground this in a real-world example, just to see how this plays out. Ports are actively using AIS data to financially reward sustainable behavior. The Port of Rotterdam is a brilliant case study for this. They use an environmental ship index to single out vessels that score highly on reducing their emissions. In just one single year, the Port Authority used this precise data to hand out almost €3 million in port fee discounts to really green vessels. If you arrive with a high enough score, boom, you get a 10% reduction on gross tonnage port fees. And depending on specific emission reductions, that discount can even double. But it goes way beyond just physical ship upgrades. The data itself is actually an efficiency tool. By analyzing the irregular speed patterns of 400,000 tracked ships, operators can implement what's known as slow steaming. Instead of rushing full speed right across the ocean just to drop anchor and wait outside a congested, busy port, they plan the voyage carefully from berth to berth. This holistic route optimization significantly reduces fuel consumption and emissions. And the best part? It achieves all this without needing any massive, expensive new technology on the ship itself. Caterina Ignatio really sums this up perfectly. She noted that they are passionate believers in the huge changes that transparency and big data can help deliver across the shipping industry. I mean, think about it. The exact same tiny data packets that tell a ship's computer whether an antenna is sitting at the bow or the stern are now being aggregated by the millions. This massive wave of business intelligence is allowing shipping companies to make faster, much smarter decisions that are yielding massive environmental, strategic, and economic benefits. Data transparency is literally cleaning up our oceans. I really want to leave you with this final thought to consider. What started as just a tiny, short-range radio blip to stop ships from crashing into each other in the fog has become the vital nervous system of all global trade. As satellite tracking gets even faster and these algorithms get even smarter, how might this massive data set further transform global shipping by 2030? It's amazing to consider how tracking a bunch of dots on a digital map can literally help save the planet over the next decade. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes on the horizon.